Previously on Outback Rangers.
Any sign of her?
As seasons change, Kakadu Rangers launch a crucial patrol on poachers.
3, 4. That's Mum right there. Yeah. Oh, bugger.
While preparing the park for the coming deluge.
We've got a lot of sites we've got to start getting access to.
In this episode, the long-anticipated monsoon finally arrives. But with it, new problems.
Plenty of trees down today. You don't count because it becomes depressing otherwise.
Rangers must head out to clear blocked roads, while another crew race to control an invasive species. The Outback Rangers gear up to deal with the havoc brought on by the big wet. March in Kakadu. After a record dry season, the monsoon has finally arrived. Torrential rainfall turns parched earth into thriving wetlands. It's a perfect time for the jacana to nest and the magpie geese to mate. As the river system becomes inundated, plants flourish. Speargrass grows over 2 meters tall and native plants flower. But in this wet environment, something else also thrives. Something that threatens Kakadu's fragile ecosystem. An invasive weed called Mimosa. Senior Ranger Buck Salau, along with Ranger Fred Hunter, are charged with an important mission: to search and destroy Mimosa. It competes with native plants and blocks access to food sources and habitat for animals. If left unchecked, Mimosa has the potential to devastate the wetlands.
If you had Mimosa, well, nothing goes there. It just takes over. There's no bird life. Like magpie geese can't nest, feed and all that in the floodplain, so that's probably the most important thing.
4 Mile Hole, South Alligator District. Buck and Fred are monitoring floodplains where the weeds were previously found. Today they'll travel 150 kilometers. They need to get to the Mimosa fast before they start to drop their seeds.
Two airboats working, mostly all wet season with 2 teams. That's the only way we can get to Mimosa.
If things do happen out here, that's why we carry fat phones and we've got radios for emergencies. Well, you just got to make sure when you're cruising through, just be careful and just plod along. But anything can happen out here.
You're on water, so basically if you do break down, you can't just pile over and walk off home because it's full of crocodiles here, this swamp, and that's a big area.
Basically, we come and check this plot many times as we can. As you can see, we've got one plant here. It's only a seedling. This is how we like to find them. It hasn't dropped any seeds.
Good news for the Rangers so far. But it's still early in the day, and there's no telling if the rest of the floodplains are as lucky. At the East Alligator District, researcher Tegan Cremona has an equally important task.
Sleeping's getting stronger, which means that we're getting a lot closer to the location of the quoll.
Tegan has been studying the quoll population in this district. Over the last year, she has tagged 7 quolls with radio tracking devices. This morning, she's out to check on them.
These juveniles that we've been tracking, their mums have been toad trained, but the offspring themselves have not been toad trained. So that's what we're really looking at, is if they've learnt without us intervening.
The northern quoll population had been declining for many years, but when the toxic cane toad arrived in 2001, their decline went into free fall. Cane toads thrive in the wet season, so it's a critical time for the young quoll's survival. It's a crucial job, but what really motivates Tegan is her affection for these tiny marsupials.
I've always been fascinated with carnivorous marsupials. I like quolls because they're not your typical marsupial. They're not kangaroo hopping around. They've got a bit of fire in them. They're a bit feisty. They'll chase down a rat and have it for dinner. I try not to be a hermit, but yeah, when you're out here alone, you end up a bit like a hermit. The only living things I see are quolls. They're part of my family now. Look forward to seeing them every day. Picking up a double beak, which means the collar's been still for at least 8 hours. Could mean two things. If the collar's fallen off, it could be just sitting in the grass somewhere, and we shouldn't have too much trouble finding it. But the other alternative is that a quoll has died.
A dead quoll would be bad news for an already fragile population.
Must be here somewhere. Oh no. Oh, we've got a little quoll here that's been killed by something. Like maybe a dingo or a wild dog. It's almost been torn in half. Looks like a female. It is just really devastating. I've been following this baby basically since it became independent. And this is a small population, so every single quoll that dies has a huge impact. So especially female quolls, there's just so few of them, and we really need the females to hang on that bit longer to reproduce in the next year.
It's heartbreaking news, but there may be a silver lining.
This quoll hasn't died from a cane toad, so that's a positive thing. This quoll might have been avoiding cane toads, and it's just been unlucky to get snatched by a predator. It would be a very sad day to see a species like the northern quoll disappear. It is important that we do everything we can to help the quolls.
The big wet is also the ideal time to study another endangered population. South Alligator River, the only fully protected river system in Australia. Home to a number of vulnerable wildlife species, including river sharks.
Another one.
Fish biologist Peter Kine and Grant Johnson are from the National Environmental Research Program. They have been studying the river shark population in the South Alligator River system. They're on the lookout for the elusive speartooth shark, a critically endangered species so elusive that no one has ever seen an adult.
Got a shark?
Peter and Grant need to find out more about this rarely encountered species, even if it means staking out crocodile-infested waters.
GLA 015. We're doing some surveys for river sharks and sawfish out here on the South Alligator. So sharks and ray are primarily marine species, and there's only a handful of them that get into fresh water and into rivers. The reason we're working on these species here is to try and get better information to guide and try and recover the populations. We can't recover them until we sort of know what the actual status is. These rivers act as a nursery area for the young. Since if we wanted to conserve or manage the entire life cycle of these species, we really need to know where those adults are, where they're going. It's nice when they're released, you see that nice little kick-off, means they're nice and healthy, so it hasn't been too traumatic for it. There's a barramundi caught in the net here. We get them out quickly because they attract the crocodiles. Easy feed for the crocs.
It's not a bad office, it really isn't. You know, it's not the easiest place to work with mud and crocodiles and lots of things trying to bite you, but it's yeah, no, it's exciting to look and see what's in there. Murky water hides a lot of things, yeah. Makes life interesting. All right. All right, then another one.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we've captured 2 speartooth sharks so far. Still a bit of fishing time to go, so given the rarity of the species, that's actually not a bad day already. Oh, it looks like there's rain coming.
It certainly cools things down a bit. It'd be good to have some rain.
This is the best part about it, mate. Yeah.
The South Alligator River system is one of only a handful of places in the world this shark has been recorded. But the elusive 2.5-meter adult is still to be found. Back at 4 Mile Hole, Buck and Fred are forging ahead with their search and destroy mission. They need to find and remove the mimosa before the plants drop thousands of seeds into the floodplains. One way to spot a mimosa, its touch-induced movement.
So it's one way of identifying a mimosa plant. They've got prickles on them, of course. Let's see. And that's all it is. This one plant, if it grew to mature and seeded, that means that we're looking at a possible seed bank of another 25, 30 years. It's probably 12, 15 years old, this particular area here, where there's been a seeded plant. So just to come back and find that one, very satisfying. It's a really good find today. It's well worth just being able to find our way in here.
Searching for the mimosa is a laborious task. The rangers need to be alert at all times.
When I first came to Kakadu, there was thousands of buffalo. In the early days, some of the larger infestations of mimosa, we actually found buffalo were getting in them. With the mimosa seed, it would stick to their hair, on their bodies, and also the mud. And we were starting to find mimosa plants growing out of buffalo wallows, so they were transporting the seed as well. So yeah, so we do cull them for that reason.
To stop buffaloes from trampling Kakadu's wetlands, their numbers have to be kept under control.
They are an introduced species and their numbers can build up very quickly. The job's done because it has to be done to protect our wetlands.
The rangers call it a day and return to their home for the past 4 days, the campsite.
Yeah, this area here, we camp probably 3 times a year during the wet season for airboating. We usually come down because you can't come in every day, bog up the road, so if you come in here, we usually try and stay for a while.
No.
There's a storm coming. You can hear thunder over here behind us and over this way here. It looks like we're going to cob it. We're going to get hit by lightning, all right?
We'll survive it. We've been pretty lucky here, haven't we?
Buck and Fred are worried the torrential rain and wind could cause a major problem. Fallen trees.
To Card Spoke. That storm last night dropped a whole heap of trees on the road.
Yeah, copy that. We'll organise a crew and we'll see if we can get through today and meet up with you partway along the track or in where you're at. Yeah, the access has just been blocked, so we'll go and get rid of a few trees and make it a bit easier for them to get out.
Khan Spokes from the South Alligator Station is leading this roadblock operation. Khan and his team have no time to waste. They need to clear the trees that were knocked down by last night's storm.
Plenty of trees down today. The storms are an annual event that happens every wet season. With Freddie and those guys, it can become a real issue if something belts through, knocks it down a heap of trees and locks them in for a couple of days. And worst case scenario, yeah, they could be stuck for 3 or 4 days clearing trees. So we try and help out as much as we can because the job they are doing is so demanding. This one's got a couple of issues. This tree got another dead tree hanging top end of it here. So as I drop that one may pull out of that iron bark there. The ironwood. If we get plenty of these things, it could be a very long day in the sun. Slide. I'm not going to cut right through. What I want to do is just try and give that a weak point so that when the whole thing does go, it'll drop, and that will snap, and that'll fall, and I won't be there. That's the plan.
The work is time-consuming. With Buck and Fred trapped at 4 Mile Hole, Khan and his team need to move fast to reach them before nightfall.
It worked well. Doesn't always go to plan like that, but occasionally it does. And if we get to where Freddie and Buck are, they'll be happy. Otherwise, they'll be waiting still till tomorrow.
With the Weeds team finally able to head home, the Rangers can now call it a day. Nighttime on the South Alligator. The air is filled with sounds marking the wet season. Inactive during the dry months, many of Kakadu's frogs are now awakened by the rain and the explosion of insects it brings. Naturalist Ian Morris and ranger Anne O'Day are out tonight to see if the frogs have come out of their hibernation. Ian has a special skill, recognizing frog calls.
And it'll be interesting just to see who's around here at the beginning of their main activity period, which is the season of good yelp.
They stumble across one of the neighborhood's noisiest residents, the carpenter frog.
Hello. This is in the banjo frog family, unique to this sandstone country, both here and in the Kimberley to our west. The carpenter frog is very distinctive because it has a call that just sounds like somebody hammering wood. Every frog species has its own language, and we learn their calls very quickly because you need to be able to go into an area and do a quick survey of what's happening and who's there. We know all our frogs, all the known species. It's like members of your own family. You know their voice. Even if you're blindfolded, you know their voice. Hear the noise like a little canary? It's the one we want. It's called the masked cave frog.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see one of those.
The masked cave frog is one of many species endemic to this area. Monitoring them is vital.
When you're calling, you're signalling to both the other males of your species and the females that you've got good breeding habitat around you, but you're also letting all your predators know where you are. We've got quite a few snakes that are frog specialists, and so that sound draws them in. Hear that? That's it, masked cave frog. One hopping towards me now. They have a call, a little trilling call, a little bit like a canary. One of our really unique frogs that's only found in this area, nowhere else in Australia. They're just starting to get excited now for the first time this year.
Kakadu gets under your skin, you know. Every place here just is different at all times of years. You can never have been to each place enough because it's not always the same. It's always changing, especially throughout the seasons.
Back at the East Alligator District, Tegan Cremona presses on to check on her little friends.
What we're hoping is the quolls that we've trained will have babies. And not only will the trained quolls survive, but the babies will also learn to avoid toads, and they can survive to reproduce as well.
The first few traps come up empty.
Not long after we started tracking them, we did have a few quolls die, killed by predators. The wet season can be a pretty tough time for the quolls because there's lots of hungry animals out there and there's lots of toads as well. So I'm really concerned about the future of this population.
It's not a promising sign for the fragile population, but Kakadu has a habit of revealing the unexpected.
Oh, looks like we've got a quoll. We got one. This is awesome news. She's gorgeous. She's one of the ones we've been following, one of the babies from last year. This is one of the ones that's important for the future. This is great. There's living proof here. This is working. She's survived through the toughest time. There's toads around, so they're not eating them. The incredible part of this is that these are wild animals. The fact that we've been able to teach them something, it's just incredible. It's a great success, and there's just so much hope for these guys in the future.
I think the wet season, it can be quite a humbling experience because it's out of your control. It's so dynamic. You don't know what's going to happen. We are humble to this environment. We are ruled by nature. We're not actually manipulating it, changing it in any way. That's what I love about this place, that it's looking after us.
In the next episode, Rangers and the Northern Territory Police maintain law and order within Kakadu.
Just a couple of vehicles have been detected with firearms here. Probably around 120 rounds of ammunition that's unsecured in the back of one of the vehicles.
While just outside Kakadu,
Yeah, look out, Joe. There's a female coming towards the cage.
a croc farmer takes the words risky business to another level.